Hey, what's up, guys? This is Mr. Mentz.
And Mrs. Swank.
And this is our podcast that we regularly do. This is Swank and Mentz Off the Fence podcast, where we just have some banter and we have conversations about questions that are provided to us by students.
So you should ask us some. I mean, it sounds like a good idea.
Indeed. We want you guys to listen to our podcast, to bring us questions to answer. We think that we have a lot of real-world experience to bring to you guys. This particular episode is going to be more of a discussion with all of the veterans in the building.
Which is a good time to introduce them. All right, so we've got Mr. Ponsler here.
Hey, good morning.
And Mr. Kelly.
What's up?
Our topic today that we're going to talk about is the pledge. And I thought that there's really no better people within this building or our community to talk about the pledge and our perspective on it than the veterans. And we're blessed in this building to have 4 veterans here day to day. And so let's kick it off.
All right, let's do it. So students, please stand, put your hand over your heart, and say the pledge with us today. And then we will pause for a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag
Of the United States of America.
And to the republic
for which it stands,
One
nation, under God,
indivisible.
Liberty.
and justice for all. Students, staff, if you're interested in listening to this podcast, you can find it on GTV Pirates YouTube channel under Swank and Mentz Off the Fence podcast. All of our previous couple seasons and episodes are on there. So I encourage you guys all to listen to that and to just email us questions if anything comes to mind.
Or if you're like me, you can just Google Swank and Mentz Off the Fence, too. I just figured I'd give that way.
We're different.
There you go. That's what makes it great. Have a fantastic day, everybody. Hey, Mr. Ponsler. Tell us a little bit about your military service.
All right. Well, I joined the military in the Army, U.S. Army, in 1986. I served for 4 years to 90. I got out a little early my last year due to a hardship situation with my dad. He was ill, terminally ill, and had a family farm down in Westport area, and I needed to come home and take care of that thing. So, and that's where I like to say, if you want to hear God laugh, tell him your plans, because it may not be his plans, right? Because I was thoroughly going to be 20 years or plus military man. That was my goal out of high school. That was what I wanted to do. My brother had been in the military. He served during, he was a lot older than me. He was 19 years older, had served in Vietnam, and I'd heard all those exciting tales that he yarned. And I thought, man, this is going to be the life for me, right? 20 years in the military at least, and go from there. Obviously, my mom did not want that. She pleaded me to go to college for 2 years at least. So I did. Got me an associate's degree at Vincennes University. Came back and joined the Army. Made her proud. Got my 2 years of college there.
What'd you do in the Army?
I was a 62 Bravo. Was a construction equipment mechanic. It's the only mechanic in the Army at the time that was a engineer mechanic. So instead of wearing an ordnance insignia, wore a engineer crest. So I was attached to a engineer battalion, engineer companies, my first year and a half out of Fort Leonard Wood, the 5th Engineers, which did not do much mechanic work, like real mechanic work. It was more like services. But when we'd go to the field, growing up on the farm down in Decatur County, Indiana, you learn how to operate stuff. So when they sent me to the field, I was running dozers, loaders, backhoes. I was like a regular operator, to the point where when the HIMMETs came out, the recovery vehicles, my platoon sergeant sent me to that school, which was out of my MOS, and everybody in the motor pool was so mad. And his answer was, learn how to drive and operate, and you can go too.
Right on.
I got a little nostalgic there when you said you didn't wear the ordnance insignia because I was ordnance. So I'm like,
sorry.
oh no,
No, I wasn't going to say nothing bad about those flaming.
Look, listen to that. Listen to that talk.
And I'm surrounded by
are.
who madness.
I almost, when he said ordnance and say, I almost like, who? And then I'm like, I'll probably not do that. But
Right
you
on.
are surrounded by soldiers.
I say hoorah a lot because all my neighbors were Marines at Fort Knox, so
Good.
I was
Good
out
for
of
you.
place there.
I had some Marines in mine that were detached.
They
with
kept
us.
trying to get me to switch over.
Hey, that sounds like the best and the worst neighbors you could have.
It was a it was a party 24/7.
You know, when sometimes when our detached Marines, they'd call cadence, and you know how your commands are a little different. They were just it was kind of fun because I'm like, that's how you guys say that.
Speak English.
Yeah, jealous.
Kelly, your DNC was on it. That's for sure.
Kelly, what you got? Tell us about your service.
Mike Kelly. I retired as a staff sergeant. I actually made E7, but I wouldn't have held it long enough to be paid for it. So I did 21 years of service. I was a 19 kilo. That's a M1A A1 Abrams crewman. I was an A-deuce tanker as well, but I actually went to A1 Master Gunner course. I've served all over the world. I've been on 4 major deployments. I was a security force in the 96 Olympics. I was S49 Bosnia-Herzegovina. I was I was S49. I was Operation Iraqi Freedom 1 and 2. I crossed over because my unit got extended. We were the first unit historically to get extended in that war, so the unit was there for 18 months. Came back from that and became an instructor, and actually that's what propelled me into going into teaching. And I had a fruitful career. I'm blessed. It provided a great opportunity for myself to see the world, and not all of it was bad. I tried to embrace the good parts with it as well, and it provided a good living for my family, and also got them to experience different culture. We were stationed in Germany. I could sit here a whole nother podcast for everywhere I've been, but it's definitely was a good ride, and I'm glad I did it. And I'm proud, And I just want to say, for record, we've lost 2 really good, strong Indiana National Guardsmen this week. Sergeant First Class Donald Ankrum passed away from cancer, and today we lost Colonel Stephen Phippen. So rest in peace, brothers.
Thank you guys for your service. I think it's important that we do show gratitude to everyone, even enter service. But it's always good to hear the stories. I think it would be, I think the kids would like to hear more of your stories. So I think if Swank's cool with it, we'll probably try to have you guys back on just to tell a little bit more about your service, or just about you guys and get to know you guys a little bit better. But for now, our topic is the Pledge of Allegiance that we're going to go over today. I know I've had many discussions with students in my room and just different observations, and I was curious to see what you guys had observed or seen around the school, or in just different settings that you've been in through college or in law enforcement, Ponsler, and then obviously in the classroom and other places around the school. So let's kick this thing off.
All right. I know that just to start off, when my opinions on some of this have changed over the course of my maturity, I suppose. But it's just being in Greensburg. I just want to start off by saying that it's nice to be at a place where there's a respect for the flag, and for saying the pledge, and for talking about it, because not all schools make that possible. So just kind of frame it around that, just the fact that we can even have this conversation, or even that it's I've taught at schools where there is no flag in a classroom.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yep.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah.
I had a tiny little flag in my classroom when I first came there, and I think I got rid of that like day one.
Like the itty bitty one, like the little stick one.
I brought a big one in, hung it up.
When we were doing the football games originally on our new field, there wasn't a flagpole out there yet, the first couple games, home games. And we had to we didn't have to, but we did, the cheerleaders did the presentation of the flag. And it was one of the newer flags. It was a new flag for out front, and they bared it out there. And I went over with them what that meant to me, to them. The honor, the prestige, the sacrifices that individuals have made just so we can have that flag. And they really absorbed it, and it showed in the way they honored it when they took it out. They weren't about to let it touch the ground. They were all about that. They were like, that's the last thing's going to happen. But they did a really good job on it.
Were any of you on details? Like I worked on flag detail for our post I did a rotation. Did any of you guys during your service do flag details?
I actually am part of the Indiana Military Funeral Honors and the ceremonial unit. So I've done full on caissons. I was the firing party in COIC for a long time. I've had to fold the flag many times and present to the widows. I did that on active duty and as part of the Indiana National Guard. Anytime Indiana would lose somebody in combat, they would bring them back, and we would do an honorable transfer from the jet to the hearse. And if the family requested, which most of the time they did, we would actually follow the hearse to whatever hometown the individuals went to, and then we would carry them into the funeral home and then stand by and then carry them back to the hearse and continue to do that for them unless they wanted their family to pallbearer. But regardless, they usually requested us. And it's pretty eye-opening when one of the missions we went on, because I'd always look at the packet and kind of try to get to know the individual that I'm getting ready to carry. And one day we show up and I'm looking at the packet, and it was Staff Sergeant Roy Lusader, a buddy of mine I went to school with. So it was an extra sad, but,
Made it personal.
honor. It made it extremely personal. And, so I got to carry my buddy. So,
it's interesting that the conversation kind of went this way because my first husband died from a service-connected issue, and I was one of those widows that received the flag. And as a veteran, to be in that position and in, I actually received it the proper way, if you know what I mean. And it's pretty powerful to think about. If my house were burning down, I would grab that flag. So.
Right on. Pretty powerful experiences. I love to hear the experience, and that's the reason that this room is together to bring this wisdom to the students, hopefully. So let's change this conversation a little bit, although it's super awesome to hear. But let's talk practically. So what are we observing in the classroom? I can tell you personally, just real quick, I've been since I introduced this idea to the group, I've really been observing around the room to see kind of what participation has been like, and I'm getting about 70%. I have 2 morning classes. I'm getting about 70, maybe 80% participation in actually reciting the pledge. And keep in mind, this is in front of a Marine, and they all know it, and so they know I'm a pretty patriotic guy. And I'm getting 20% to 30% of my class who aren't reciting the pledge. Maybe they're standing up, maybe they keep their headphones in or their hat on. And I'll dog them a little bit for that, but I'm not going to talk about my perspective on it yet, but I want to hear what you guys are observing.
Do you have anybody who sits?
I don't. I have people
that goes through me personally. It's disrespectful.
I have students who will wait, like they're watching Netflix or scrolling through TikTok, and they're like, "Oh, the pledge is on. I should stand up." And then maybe they'll put it on pause.
that's their way to show their discontent, because I have the same thing. I mean, I have 20 to 30% that just go through the motions and they huff when they get up, and they make it very obvious that it's not something that they want to do. And, like you said, as far as our opinions, we have to bite our tongue, because in our positions as teachers, we have to just honor the ones that are respecting it, and just know that, a lot of I actually pity the ones who don't respect it, because I don't think it's necessarily their true opinion. I think they're trying to ride the waves of society right now, and society's very split on patriotism, and I think people have lost what patriotism truly is, because it's convoluted and it got really messy in our sports arenas. And I do feel that society is very, very lost in what true patriotism is,
Yeah, for sure. I saw a recent poll that showed that patriotism is at an all-time low
Yeah, and I think that for me, when I think about this issue, I'm kind of conflicted in a lot of ways about it because I'm a huge First Amendment person, but also as a veteran, I have like strong opinions, and I try to reconcile those. But to bounce off what Kelly said, you know, we also have kids who are living in homes where they get, you know, my patriotism came from my parents and from the way I was raised and from my, you know, knowing about the veterans in my family and knowing about like what this country has like provided the freedom to do X, Y, and Z, right? And they weren't overly patriotic, but my dad was drafted in during the Vietnam War. My mom volunteered during the Vietnam War. So like I was born at Fort Sill or around Fort Sill. And so it's where we come from and our environment too plays heavily in whether they sit, whether they stand, whether they like, you know, whether they have an influence of Marine in the room. I have kids. I think everybody knows that I was prior service, and I have a couple kids who sit, like today will sit, and you know it conflicts me. It conflicts me on a lot of different. There's a lot of layers to it.
I think some of it comes from outside sources. So we are being split as a society, and the one thing that we can all say we are, no matter what group we fall in, say we want to split hairs on, you know, whether we're a Hoosier or whether we're a Greensburg or, you know, one of the county schools, whatever. We split it down to the pronouns now, okay? But the one thing we all are Americans, and that flag represents every single person in this country. And if you take that flag out of this country and take it to millions of other people around the world, it means hope. It means something that they can say, oh, the Americans are here. Now we're not going to be oppressed anymore. We're not going to be sold into slavery. We're not going to be forced to do this and that because we stand for what is right. Now our government does wrong things because we're human, right? We're human. They have the same motivations that everybody does. If they think they can be corrupt, they can be corrupt in any way they can. Now that's just part of it. We have to fix that problem ourselves. But we have been divided so many different ways by so many different outside sources because they know that's the way to defeat us, right? If you can divide the population of the United States to split them up to fight amongst themselves, then that takes the attention off what the world's doing against their people, the rest of the world, right? We're so blessed in this country. We got up this morning, we had electricity, I had hot water, I had breakfast, I come to school, I get to be part of this right here. We are blessed. We are blessed in the society we are, and we don't realize it. And I think I hope it doesn't happen, but if you take electricity away tomorrow, think about everything that's run by electricity, what you would not have, right?
To caveat off of what Mintz said and to kind of add to Ponsler, and yes, patriotism's at an all-time low because unfortunately patriotism is an almost uncomfortable subject from a true patriot because as a true patriot, we get labeled. You know, we get labeled as automatic right-wing extremists, you know, depending on, you know, your geographical or your cultural profile, you know. We try to instill our patriotism in personnel because, yes, we're, you know, Vince is a Marine, I'm a soldier. Everyone else in this room is soldiers, and, you know, it hurts us to see somebody sitting or huffing when they have to stand up for the pledge or not going through the motions. But at the same time, it goes back to pitying them because society has just got it so twisted right now and confused. And everyone wants to point fingers and blame everybody for everything negative that's going on. Instead of seeing anything positive, like you've just brought about 1 million positive points of being an American, most people, it's too cliche for them to be quote unquote American or to be a patriot. You know, they take these, they take all this fruitful stuff that we have to offer and to be provided with in this country, and they basically think that it's a gimme because they didn't really have to do anything for it because it's here. They don't understand what it's like to go to some of the countries that we've been in and see the way those people actually truly live.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing here is a reflection, obviously, of our society, and our society is torn, and unfortunately, there's a lot of people who are who do believe that our country is systemically bad, and we won't go into all the things, but I saw something the other day where they were asking people, are you proud of your heritage? You know, maybe they were from a different country or something, and absolutely they were. Are you proud of the color of your skin? Most of them were. But and I don't mean to get into this polarizing thing, but if they asked American, and I'll just go ahead and say a white American person, if they were proud of their skin color or of their country, a lot of times they said no, and that was on a college campus. So that's not where we're at here, I don't think. And a lot of times those things are meant to be polarizing, but still, it kind of hit hard, and I guess I just didn't realize that it was that bad. So what do? I think as adults, we have a responsibility to correct or to have the conversations. I don't think we should be chastising kids for sitting down. Obviously, First Amendment plays a big role in that, and it's their freedom and their right to sit down or to not recite the pledge. But I think a lot of times here it's not necessarily in boycott of the colors. I think it's more laziness, or maybe they just want attention. And so I think as adults and leaders in this building, it's our responsibility to pull those kids aside and say, hey, what's going on, man? I noticed that you weren't reciting the pledge today.
That makes me think about, I haven't engaged the few kids that, or even the kids that just stand. And I'm huge into dialogue and discussion. And I mean, as an English teacher, it's part of what we do, right? But that's an inspiring thought, because as long as the kids feel comfortable with us, and I think all four of us, really almost every adult in this building, if not every adult in this building, tries to build relationships with kids through discussion and through just kind of talking about things that are much harder than this. And this one's, would be pretty tough, because you got to, at least from my perspective, have to make a kid comfortable enough to want to share this sort of thing, right? Because the reasons why they do what they do could be societal, they could be psychological, it could be they have a grandpa that got is prior service who's now very angry, right? And who says stuff all the time, and they love their grandpa. I'm just making this up, but you get the idea that the reasons why they sit or just stand or don't recite it, it's innumerable. But discussion and relationship building and trying to get to understand and to know kids is really kind of pivotal.
Well, I had a conversation the other day with some students who they were really upset that other people hadn't recited. And I said, well, what do you think we should do about it? And the ideas that were floated were crazy. They were like, we should tax them. We should fine them for not standing up or not saying the pledge, or we should take pictures of them and post them. Like they were all over the place.
Do they realize how un-American that is?
And that was the conversation that we ended up getting to. But yeah, you're right. But I don't think that we're on the right track as a society to correct the behavior.
Right. Which is exactly the point of that conversation, right? To shame people and to that's not going to do anything except further polarize them.
And I don't think they realize it.
Yeah.
Well, the ones that are doing it for attention, that's going to be what they want. You know what I mean? As soon as you start shaming them, they're going to be riding the coattails of their agenda. You know what I mean? That's right. Part of that. I mean, protesters, that's what they do. They go out and they protest against something, or if they, a lot of people love the controversy of being that individual
to be the rebel.
Yeah. And it's not even rebel. I wouldn't even give them that
person
title.
That wants to.
That's too good of a title.
Well, and also dialogue. It's easy to forget that dialogue can bring about a new understanding on both sides. There's nothing wrong with seeing a perspective. It doesn't make you a bad person to understand the perspective of somebody who you don't agree with. And I think kids are losing that because of social media and because of the polarization and because of the little snippets, right? I talk fairly regularly about, if we're going to talk about something like the pledge, we have to get beyond the surface of each side. We have to get into the minutia of the discussion. I mean, I don't have this discussion, which is kind of what I was saying, Mence, when, based on what you said, but we talk about how to slow down and really dig in a little bit instead. But they don't really, in an English classroom, they don't want to. They don't even almost know how to, because everything that they see is on the surface, regardless of which side it is. So stand for the pledge, don't stand for the pledge. Well, what does that even mean? I don't even know if they could articulate, though, either side, even the one that they feel that they're on.
Right. I feel strongly that it is incumbent upon us adults to stand our ground here, because if it continues in this trend where the patriotism levels are going down, I think our nation is weaker as a whole. You know, the reason why we win wars in this country is not always because that we are the best warfighting organizations, although, you know, maybe here recently we actually are, but we win wars because of our patriotism and our pride in our country and our sense of something that's greater than ourselves. And if that diminishes, I think our warfighting organizations are weaker, which makes our country weaker. This is the next generation of professionals, of teachers and warfighters and farmers, and you name all these professions. This is the next generation, and if we just allow them to just continue on with this behavior, we're weak. Our economy's weak. Our warfighting organizations are weak, as I've already mentioned. 2 branches of service hit their recruiting numbers this year. You know what they were? Yeah, you can guess it. Go ahead.
Are they sitting in this room?
No, the Marine Corps.
I had no idea that you were going to say that.
The United States Marine Corps hit their recruiting numbers this year, and the Space Force. All other branches missed the mark, some of them by 40%.
You guys, I think he came in here with those numbers.
I think he made those up.
I think
well, that's because there's only 30 Marines, and then the Army's 500,000.
No, it was 30,000.
Go, Kelly.
That's
Go.
where they get the few.
Roger that.
No, it was 30,000. But
you can't drop that rotten apple in here and then expect just to get by.
Hey, it wasn't just the Army; it was the Navy,
I thought the Marines were part of the Navy.
the Air Force. That's true. We are the Department of the Navy. We do a lot more with little. That's okay. Well, I just wanted to make a point that, we can't even recruit people for the greatest military that's ever been on our planet.
That should say something. That's it. Volumes. Respect is earned, right? It's not just given freely for a lot of things. And I think we need to teach why we need to respect that. I think we need to honor, duty, words like those are not used enough. If you make a commitment, you need to stick to your commitment, right? We let a lot of that go by the way. And in the long term, it decays the whole fundamentals of what we stand for.
Yeah. I recently heard about someone who just said, well, I signed up for the military and I took the oath, but if it doesn't work out, I'll just go do this other thing. And I said, if it doesn't work out.
So an oath is worth nothing.
But if it doesn't work, is that a thing? Because when my Army said, it's going to work out.
Oh, it's not like that no more, and that's one of the reasons why they're probably not meeting their goals. I can tell you 2 words that changed my whole
stress card.
No, due diligence and quantify your bullets. The quantify and due diligence. When they started speaking in that language, I knew that something was not right. And unfortunately, in the military now, society has driven their agendas into our military.
Equality, diversity.
Oh yeah. I mean, I was training my troops in California to do gunnery. We're going to go out on Abrams tanks and shoot live bullets downrange. Dangerous, extremely dangerous. Fratricide's dangerous. Vehicle ID, ammo ID, all this stuff is extremely critical to our survival through this program. Brigade calls. Kelly, you got all your trainings done. We're lacking on 2 of the trainings. One of them was, I'm not going to name them because it'll bracket me and it's uncomfortable. Regardless, they were 2 hurdy-filly trainings is what we called them. And I'm in, at this time, they still had not let females into combat arms, so it was an all-male unit. And the classes were pertaining to stuff that really did not matter to, it wasn't like on our scope. That's why I held them back, and we were going to do this field problem, and I'd come back and pick these trainings up when we got back. Brigade made me stop our GST and our GT1 to complete these trainings. So, I knew right then and there that they don't care about the warfighting ability at this point. They care more about checking the blocks to make sure society understands that we're meeting all of their emotional needs. And that is a reason why recruitment has gone down. True patriots are having a hard time swallowing the pills of what's going on in the military right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, military is a reflection of our government as well. You know,
Yes.
a lot of those things are coming down from our government, and I think that our trust in our government as a whole, as a nation, has been degraded as well. But that's a whole nother conversation. I think that we can take on another time. That we got to wrap this thing up. The bell's about to ring here this morning. Any last minute thoughts? Any solutions? You guys got anything to add before we close out this conversation?
I want to thank you for inviting me in here. I've enjoyed this. Just hold the line.
Yeah, ditto. This is a great experience, and talking with fellow veterans is, I could do this daily.
I think what I would love to say, just to close it out, is if you want more of this, reach out, because we don't know what you want until you email us and say, or stop us in the hallway and say, I loved it. Can we have more on this particular topic or that particular topic? And we know where to go. Otherwise, you're just leaving us to pick it ourselves, which we would prefer that you pick it. And so if you enjoyed any part of this, or you want more of the four of us, or if you want us to do individual podcasts with Mr. Kelly or Mr. Ponsler or someone else, speak up.
Right. Hey, I also wanted to make a big shout out to Mr. Pratt. I think that his pledge program is incredible, and he's doing a fantastic job with that. And just it shows our community's support for Old Glory, for the pledge, and or for the colors of our country, and I think he's done an incredible job. So I just wanted to shout out Mr. Pratt.
I agree.
Cool.
Yes.
All right, guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Rock and roll.